2024 was a bit of a weird year for video games. There was a disgusting amount of layoffs in the industry, some colossal live service failures, and just some real duds overall. But I get my energy from talking about the stuff that I love. So today we're talking about my favourite video games from 2024, not the critical darlings or the stuff that was objectively the best or whatever that may be, the stuff that I played and it put a big smile on my face. So let's dive straight in at number 10. We've got Marvel Rivals. The children have yearned for a successful live service superhero game, and we might finally have one. Admittedly, PvP hasn't really been my thing in a long time, but Marvel Rivals kind of shocked me in just how fun it is to play. It's not the most technically polished, nor does it possess the most tight mechanics in a multiplayer game, but it's a wonderful rendition of the Marvel universe, and at its core, it's simple fun. I'm pretty exhausted by free-to-play games, but out of the blocks, Marvel Rivals has captured so many, including myself, with its 33 characters that is soon to be 37, its attempt to tell a Marvel story in a multiplayer setting, but the biggest thing I can say is that it's so comic book coded. Between the art direction, the comic book panels that's telling its story, the cosmetics, it's just packing so much Marvel juice that it just has to appeal to the comic book fans. I think there are better multiplayer games out there in the mechanics, the dynamics, but Marvel Rivals is everything it needed to be. A competent Marvel shooter that is going to have a long life ahead of it. And if they ever have the bandwidth to add a PvE mode, it would be beautiful. At number 9, 2024 was the year of many things, but none more so than the year of Shadow the Hedgehog. We all have games from our childhood that stick with us. And 2005 Shadow the Hedgehog, it was one of those. They took a fucking sick designed hedgehog and they gave him a gun. And Sonic X Shadow Generations acts as a spiritual successor to a childhood classic for me. See, I never played Sonic Generations when it first came out, and despite not vibing with 2D Sonic, I had a great time here, whether that was 2D or 3D. But what really sings here is Shadow's campaign. I genuinely think that Shadow Generations acts as the culmination of everything that Sonic Team have learned over the years, from power sets, movement, boss fighting, and just leaning in to the most hype, ridiculous anime bullshit you'll ever witness. But you don't care, because it's just so sick. I would class myself as a casual Sonic fan, but Sonic X Shadow Generations gave me everything that I want. A best of package for Sonic with all of his greatest hits, but the best of everything they've learned put into Shadow's campaign. But not just that, I thought it told what was a fairly resonating story for a Sonic game with what happens with Maria and Gerald Robotnik. Between Shadow Generations and the leap forward with Sonic Frontiers, alongside the success of the movies, I think the Sonic franchise is set for a bright future. And I have no doubts in saying that Sonic X Shadow Generations is the best Sonic game I've ever played. At number 8, this will be a divisive one for many, but I'm actually going for Star Wars Outlaws. As I said at the top, this is not about what's critically the best games of the year, because Star Wars Outlaws was a deeply flawed experience, taking too long for the story to come together, many technical issues, and just overall weird design choices. But in my biases as a Star Wars fan, there is simply nothing like Star Wars Outlaws. The ability to buddy up with some of the grimiest factions in the criminal underworld, traverse from planet to space to planet, place a back with some of the most treacherous villainy in the galaxy, and did I mention how it is illegal, how cute, and how much I love Nyx? It's got better since launch for sure, but I think it's the feeling that it provides Star Wars fans that makes this one special. It really manages to capture the atmosphere and the tone of the original trilogy, and it looks absolutely sensational in doing so. Look, I understand that if Outlaws wasn't your bag at launch with the forced stealth, clunky animations, or a story that takes far too long to get going, but I did have a good time with it, and those final few hours felt like classic Star Wars in the best way possible. If there's one thing, I hope they get a shot at making a sequel of what's learned here, because I do think there could be a big quality jump, and for all the work they've put in to make all these Star Wars assets, I think it'd be a shame to see it go to waste. Look, it's a contentious one, but it did scratch my itch as a Star Wars fan. At number 7 is Warhammer Space Marine 2, and this game is dangerous. Not because of its monetization or any predatory loot boxes, because it showcases Warhammer in the coolest fucking way possible, and acts as a gateway drug into the 40k universe. It is so good that it probably will send you down a path of getting into Warhammer. Look, it's been said to death, but Space Marine 2 really is the classic Xbox 360 title for current gen. We just don't get packages like this anymore, of a fully fledged campaign, PvE mode and PvP mode, all for one retail price and free future updates. This is going to sound a bit weird, but the biggest compliment that I can give Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is that I now have confidence that Knights of the Old Republic remake can be done justice after seeing the love and the care that has been put in to Warhammer Space Marine 2. If they can do this for Warhammer, they can absolutely do it for KOTOR. The level of immersion from minute 1 of this Warhammer universe is simply breathtaking. By the end of the campaign, you kind of get Warhammer's Marvel Endgame moment that even me, a non-Warhammer fan, was freaking out, man. But I do feel that this game should be an industry standard in what maybe should be the new live service format. A full upfront cost that feels like value, that even if nothing was added to it, you feel like you got your money's worth in its swift but fantastic campaign. Enjoyable but grindy and repetitive PvE operations and a throwback style of PvP. And yet, they're still adding free content with more operations, PvP maps and a horde mode. I genuinely love Space Marine 2, and it made me hope that Warhammer can get movies and shows to invest me more in this dense sci-fi universe. At number 6, I almost feel kinda sad knowing what came after it. At number 6, we've got Destiny 2, The Final Shape. What Destiny has gone on to do after The Final Shape, I don't think anyone saw coming at release. But I want to talk about The Final Shape itself. Listen, for any video game to exist in the live service capacity for 10 years is something special. But to culminate that 10 years in such a perfect manner is beyond belief. From the prismatic subclass being a best of every ability, synergizing together to make builds that feel like you're cheating and breaking the game, to the destination that should have won every single award for art direction known to man, to the music that hits every emotional beat that had led up to this moment, to a Destiny first 12-man activity to take down the Witness once and for all in this cinematic battle. This was the video game version of Avengers Endgame to me. For me, Destiny at its core has always been about the memories made with friends, and to play that final mission and experience that with friends that I've made through the game alongside friends that I brought into this game is a memory that I will never forget. It was really something special and unique when it comes to video games. It's something that I personally won't forget or look past regardless of the game's current situation. For that month of release, Destiny had it all. The chase, the mystery, the loot, the secrets. It really felt like the culmination of what Bungie had learned and what Destiny could produce. A very special expansion and moment for fans. Down to the final 5 then, and I did not see this one coming, and maybe I should have. At number 5, I'm talking Batman Arkham Shadow. This is probably the surprise of the year for me. I just don't really vibe with VR. I think it's a cool tech demo activity to do for 15 minutes or an hour and be like, yeah, that was fun. But Batman Arkham Shadow had me playing for hours on end. The Batman Arkham franchise is probably my favourite franchise in video games, and Arkham City is my favourite game ever made. So for Arkham Shadows to not just pay homage to the games that came before it, but to produce something that stands shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the entries is a testament to what a magnificent game that Camouflage had produced here with Arkham Shadow. It was their ability to take what we know in free flow combat, in the Predator sequences, the deep Arkham world building, and make it feel new using VR. But alongside that, it was how they also did something completely different in what the loop of the game was. It's definitely the most character-driven story of any of the Arkham games, and it does something that none of the Arkham games do, in not just how it utilises Batman, but Bruce, and more importantly, matches Malone. The director expressed interest in making a sequel, and I would love that. Taking what they've learned here, adding to it, potentially Bat Family additions to the game. I expected to like Arkham Shadows, but I didn't expect to love it like this. Down to number 4 then, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This game has done more for me in appreciating Indiana Jones than any of the other movies have done in making me understand and love this character and franchise. Perhaps what I respect most is that they could have just made Uncharted but Indiana Jones, which, yeah, would have been a little weird because Uncharted kind of feels like Indy to begin with, but they didn't. They made a very specific video game here in a kind of immersive sim, I would say. I genuinely mean this when I say it. Indiana Jones is one of the funniest games I have played in a long time. I might chuckle and smile when something happens in other games, but there are moments in this game that had me full on laughing out loud, whether it was a cutscene or just how fights would play out and throwing mops or paintbrushes at enemies. It also did an excellent job of making me, the player, feel smart for uncovering a secret or for solving a trial or puzzle. It's so ridiculous at times how Indy would die, pick up his hat and then go for round 2, but that's what makes it so good, the charm and the humour of it all. Immersive sims aren't typically what I enjoy, but I love doing every possible side quest here, taking pictures, exploring, the stealth scenarios, and how daft some of the fights were. Troy Baker as Indiana Jones was excellent, but Voss was probably the best villain I've seen in a video game this year. Like a really good rendition of an absolute prick that you hate, but he's also hilarious. I thought it just about stayed its welcome and it wasn't overwhelmed with side activities either. I've only seen the first 2 Indiana Jones movies and I enjoyed them, but I just really connected with this experience. For me, this game has parallels with Respawn's Jedi Fallen Order, where when the studio and the IP were first matched together, I wasn't sure, but they proved me wrong, and just like Jedi Survivor went on to be excellent, I would love to see what Machine Games could do with an Indiana Jones sequel here. Alright then, the final 3 games that gave me life this year. At number 3, we got Astrobot. For years now, outside of a few exceptions, it's been all eyes on Nintendo to produce the real quality, notable platformers that capture that childhood joy to have you grinning at your screen as you're playing. Astrobot is a rare thing where you can guarantee that buying something will give you that same kind of feeling as playing Super Mario Galaxy as a kid, or my first video game, Crash Bandicoot. Every object in the world is begging you to interact with it. The experimentation of the mechanics and also the disposability of them in doing one mechanic in a mission and then never using it again. And of course the celebration that is PlayStation. I'm not sure that there could have been a more perfect game to time with PlayStation's 30th anniversary, but I really do think that even without the PlayStation ties, the core of Astrobot is exceptional. The use and the feedback of the DualSense controller, the movement and the freedom that playing as Astro provides, and the soundtrack is just sensational. But it does tie to PlayStation, and it does it so well, especially in its inspired levels like Uncharted or God of War, remixing Astrobot's theme with the iconic soundtracks of those franchises. I genuinely think you've got to be a real cynical person to not take any kind of enjoyment from Astrobot, and it makes me so happy knowing that Astrobot is going to be someone's first video game. There's so much discussion and discourse about characters, mechanics, monetization in games now that Astrobot just focuses on being a really fun time that sparks joy. I can't speak highly enough of it, and I really hope we get more. Before we get to the final 2, just some real quick shout outs that I want to give. Battle Shapers hit 1.0 this year, and it's an excellent roguelike that feels like Mega Man combined with Doom, and its emphasis on player fun first and foremost is brilliant, and it feels so fluid to play. Another contentious one, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Look, there's a lot to dislike about this game, for sure, but I loved Evil Batman, I love the DC inspired loot and the build crafting, and it's just got such a wonderful, high quality presentation to it. It's a shame it didn't work out, and I do hope that Rocksteady go back to the single player roots, but I had moments of fun with it this year. Despite the many flaws the game does have, it's a fun DC looter shooter. Of course, Prince of Persia The Lost Crown. This came in January, but the fact that it's still in my mind all this time later shows what an impact it had, and if Prince of Persia is to exist, I hope it is in this format now. I am sad to know that it didn't perform well and that it doesn't look like we're going to get a sequel, but I thought this was a terrific Metroidvania that was so flashy, so energetic, and so fluid. It deserved to sell more, but it's just a massive shame that it didn't. Regardless, I had a brilliant time with it. And finally, Neither. A 4-hour game that does a brilliant job in resembling a person's connection to their pet. It's beautiful to look at, wondrous to listen to, and is a really emotional journey in a game that is just simple but effective. Alright then, the final two. At number 2, I'm talking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This game feels impossible on so many levels. The sheer variety of its landscapes, the volume and breadth of musical numbers on its soundtrack, the outstanding voice acting from its main characters, the dynamic combat, and this whirlwind of an adventure at the heart of it. I have no history with Final Fantasy VII other than the remake, and I'm just in awe of what this video game is. Yes, it's probably too big for its own good in the sheer scope of activities, but then again, some of those activities are like full-on games, like tower defense, battle sims, space combat. It's incredible. There is so much to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that I'm genuinely mesmerized by. How deeply invested I am in each and every one of these characters, how extensive its combat systems are, and the choice that is given to the player in tackling those combat scenarios. But it's all about this adventure at the heart of it, that has extremely serious moments and scenarios that are heartbreaking, but it doesn't lose sight of the aspect of fun, and even in the most dire situations, the aspect of friendship. It's a beautiful video game to experience. Not to mention that Queen's Blood is probably the first video game activity to rival Gwent from The Witcher. I mean, as soon as I entered a new area, it was bye bye main quest. Right, who wants some Queen's Blood? Final Fantasy VII feels impossible on so many levels, but its core adventure is what will have me remember this one for a long time and have me awaiting that sequel for the years to come. So, the game that's brought me the most joy this year, and a big cup of liberty. The motto of Arrowhead Studios, the creators of Helldivers 2, is a game made for everyone is a game made for no one. But that's a load of nonsense, because I just cannot imagine not enjoying this video game. Like, what a fucking good time this is. At a time where the words live service muttered in a sentence will give you a room full of moans and groans, Helldivers 2 shows you exactly the meaning of the term. In a year where we've seen huge AAA live service games just be disastrous, Helldivers 2 provided a launch that was made of pure excitement, where if you weren't playing it, you were thinking about it. The Battle of Mavalon Creek is one of the best moments of games this year. From the battles, the memes, the montages, it was special. Helldivers 2 is a game that is so strong in its identity, in its satire, that it's naturally funny, but its sandbox alongside the satire provides hilarious moments. It's easily the most cinematic co-op game I've ever played, and there is nothing like a backs against the wall situation as the automatons mount one final offensive as you're all out of reinforcements waiting to extract, or all of your stratagems are on cooldown and a bile titan appears out of nowhere. It's had some big missteps for sure, with the nerfs or the PlayStation Plus requirement, but it's the first live service game in a while that feels genuinely live. No seasonal content cadence that feels predictable, just small and big updates when they're ready to go, with in-game moments and story that keep you invested. There's no FOMO to guilt you into constantly playing. In fact, it rewards you with war bonds when you do take a break. There's player-friendly monetization, the ability to earn the credits for the veterans who keep playing over and over. For me, it's a staple of what a live service game should be. And a word too for the game's sound design and music. Bam 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 bam. It will stay with you when you're not playing. It takes those cinematic moments that are already brilliant and it elevates them to another level to make this grand spectacle. It's an absolute pleasure of a video game to play, and one that I hope I play for the years to come. Helldivers 2 is the game that brought me the most joy in 2024. But that's just my list. Now, I want to hear yours. What were your favourite games from 2024? Do you have any favourite moments? Is there anything here that's like a big glaring omission? There's games that I wish I had the time to play, like Metaphor, that I just didn't get the time to get round to him. But I'd love to hear your list, anything you disagree with, agree with, favourite moments. Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed hearing my thoughts, I'd enjoy you dropping a like on the video. And truthfully, this is what I do around here. I talk about what I enjoy most about video games, what I'm passionate about. So if you're into that and you enjoy this video, maybe consider subscribing. I'd love for you to stick around. Regardless, all my socials will be linked in the description down below. So if you have anything else for me, you can find me down there. Otherwise, I hope you have a terrific day. Play games, get gains, and I'll catch you next one.